Coming to you live from the Chamber of Hunters Studios, this is Hunting You. I'm John Schelt.
I'm Keoni Hutton.
And I'm Leslie Reed.
Welcome, everyone, to the Hunting You podcast. Happy December. Wait, not December. Happy November. Happy Turkey Day. Happy something. Whatever.
All of the days.
Happy end of haunt season. How about that one? I don't know about the rest of it. I did not do much for the haunt season this year, relative to what we normally would. I'm still exhausted. So all of you who were putting on haunts and just giving it your all, good on you. I am so proud of each and every one of you. I hope your seasons went well. And I hope your cleanup is going about as smoothly as it can. My yard at least looks good. My garage is a show as I work to get everything packed up properly. But progress, right? Like the neighbors can't complain anymore, at least.
That's something. Take that.
Have they ever complained?
I was going to say, wait a sec. Were they complaining?
Not here. They have never complained here, except for the one where our guests, quote unquote, blocked their driveway. But minor complaints. Sure. And to be fair, very legitimate. But it has been a while since we have been back with you just talking. I hope everyone enjoyed our campfire stories that came out on Halloween. If you haven't listened to it yet, please go listen to it. It's so much fun. We had another dramatic reading of a Batman, as John so enjoys. We had
It's my brand.
It is totally your brand. We had some H.P. Lovecraft. We had some Grimm's fairy tales. It's a lot of fun.
Still don't get the mouse thing.
Don't overthink the mouse.
I'm sorry.
I did want to ask Les, have you read any of the other fairy tales from that Grimm's fairy tales book?
I've skimmed through some of the endings on some of them.
I'm super curious and that's the thing. I was super curious if like every story ended like that.
None of the ones that I've pulled so far. Like, I'm going to keep going because this makes no sense. I also want to find a couple more translations and publications.
Yeah.
To see what the hell.
Yeah, exactly.
What is going on?
I have to imagine maybe it was like euphemism is not the word I want. What's the word I want? A phrase in
a metaphor?
Not a metaphor. Just
no,
like idiom.
Linguistics idiom. Yeah, idiomatic.
I wonder if it's something idiomatic that just did not translate well, but it's still got me scratching my head.
It's also, again, this was a much older translation.
Yeah.
Like,
but it made perfect sense up until that point.
Up until that point,
everything was fine.
Yeah. And the way it stuck in there is kind of reminds me of like the end of the ABC song. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? Right? Like, but at least that in context, like that makes sense. But
that's contextual. There's no fucking mice in the rest of that story.
It's like if you ended the ABCs and then just went off on a story about a mongoose. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Exactly. So it has clearly flummoxed the three of us, and we're still talking about it.
That's actually
2 weeks later.
Good thought. Go listen to that. Listen to our campfires episode and see if you can figure out what the hell's going on.
And if you can figure out what the hell's going on, please let us know, because 2 weeks later we're still talking about it, and we're no closer to resolving this either. So if anyone can provide any assistance there, we would appreciate it. But we did not give any kind of updates on the chaos during that episode. So everyone is over a month behind on where we are. And I have good news to report. We got all of our permits.
You almost have a house.
It only took the better part of 3 months to get the permits cleared.
Speaking of campfire stories, once this is done, have you ever thought about turning this whole thing into like an epic poem?
Ooh,
there's an interesting idea. Keoni's quest for permits.
No, I'm already I've already started drafting a letter to various government agencies to express my displeasure and let them know all of the ways I think that they could improve their processes. I know they're going to be ignored, but it will at least let me feel better. I just want to rant, really, is what it comes down to. So let me kind of give some of the backstory on how it all happened. So where we left off before, we were waiting on the permits, right? And the contractor had recently let his license lapse, and I had assumed the GC role because the county allows me to do that. So we finally get all of that settled, and it took another week before the environmental office cleared the septic plan, which was very frustrating. They told us it would take 10 business days, and they took every single day that they possibly could, despite the fact that I was in there every other day trying to move things along. So we finally got that authorized, and very same day, in fact, it was a Friday that we had been given, it was the Friday before Columbus Day weekend is exactly what it was, because we'd been given 4 hours off work. So I left early, and I was on my way down to the permit office to go bang on doors again to say, where are my permits? As I'm driving down, ping, my phone rings, and there's the email popping up with the environmental has cleared my permit. Holy crap. Great. Now I can just shift my destination slightly. It's actually the same building. I just go upstairs instead of downstairs, and I'm off to the building permit office. So I get to the building permit office and have a conversation with them. They tell me, okay, we got it. We can issue your building permit. We need you to pay the permit fee. Great. Here's my credit card. I'm sorry, we don't take credit cards. Check, cash or check only.
Because that's convenient.
I'm a millennial. I don't know about the rest of my millennial brethren. I don't maintain a checkbook anymore. Does anyone? Like, legitimately.
I have checks. Therefore, when, oh shit, I have to pay something by check.
Like this. Like,
and it doesn't live with me. It lives in a drawer, and usually 90% of the time, Alan and I have to run around searching for one of our 3 checkbooks.
Right.
But like,
whichever one we find first is the one that gets used.
Yeah. I move every 2 years. And you know what becomes absolutely useless after you change your address? Checks, because they have the fucking address on it.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but a lot of people get very, I'm going to say sketchy about taking out of state checks because it has an address from another state.
See, mine don't
even
matter
though my bank account hasn't changed.
See, mine don't matter because mine are all same state.
Yours are at least the same state. Yeah.
Mine are still addressed from the house I lived in when I was in undergrad.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. But at least it's the same state. You know, since the last time that I had a checkbook in 2010 when I got my first apartment and needed a check to do like the security deposit and a couple of other things. That is the last time that I had a checkbook, because every time I moved after that, it was not worth buying more freaking checks. And so, and anytime I have needed a check, I would go get a cashier's check from, you know, Walmart, or not a cashier's check, but a money order, or, you know, some other way of getting a check, because my bank, active duty, I use USAA. USAA does not have branches except for their primary branch in Texas. Everything is online. You cannot get a cashier's check online. So anyway, all of that was just, that's all the background to cash your check, please. Okay, where's the nearest ATM? They give me directions to the nearest ATM. I go walk over to the ATM, pull out the money that I need, walk back, hand them the cash. They count it out very meticulously, as they do, give me my change. They had to go searching for change, which I found kind of amusing. I'm not going to ask where they got it from. I got my change. That's all that matters. But they give me the permit right there that day, Friday of a long weekend. I call up the contractor immediately, and I asked the government right there, can I put in the electrical and plumbing permits now? Because you could not do those without the building permit. And they tell me, no, you cannot do that. The tradesman has to do it. Fine. I called I was going to say GC, but I'm now the GC. I'm the GC now. But the man formerly known as the GC, I call him up and say, hey, have your tradespeople, the electrician and the plumber, put in their permits now. Everything should be good to go. So they get their permits in, but it's too late because I was there at 3:00. They close at 4:00. There was no way to get it before the county closed. Well, before the county closed for the long weekend. So we were stuck until Tuesday. They started processing our permits on Tuesday. Plumbing permit took a day, 1 day to turn around. The electrical permit, they have one person who is reviewing all of the permits for the entire county, residential and commercial. One person. It took 2.5 weeks to get the electrical permit issued. Issued! Not even the inspection. Issued! In that time, we had the plumbing permit issued. We had the inspection. He came out, slap a sticker on my window. Plumbing passed. Great. We got the insulation inspection done. We got the building inspector out to check all the studs and things, but he could not sign off on it because there was no electrical yet. You got to be fucking kidding me. Why did you even come then? So we found a workaround, and I want to recommend this to anyone who is going through renovations and are having the same problems we did. We were able to move forward on our keep making progress by very deliberately choosing how we were making progress. Because electrical was the only thing that we were left waiting on, we had to keep certain walls open because they had to see where the wires are running to make sure it was all done within code, right? But you don't need walls open on two sides to look at wires. So we were able to sheetrock half of the wall, leaving the other side open. And by doing that in, I'm going to say, very strategic locations, we were able to maintain all of the walls open that the electrician and the electrical inspector needed to see, while closing up enough that we could do paint, we could put down flooring, we could do all of the cosmetic, not exactly cosmetic, but like railings and banisters, and they were able to do most of the painting. Yes, we have to do some touch-up paint, but the majority of the painting done. And that allowed us to maintain schedule while waiting 2.5 weeks for this one person doing all of the freaking electrical. That's unreasonable, government of Calvert County. I'm just one of many things I'm going to complain to you about, having only one person and doing all of your freaking electrical submissions. Anyway, we finally got the electrical guy out who signed off, and over the last 2 weeks, so electrical finally came out on the 28th. No, not the 25th. He came out on the 25th of October. So over the last 2 weeks, we have been able to move forward completely unimpeded, and holy shit, have they accomplished a lot. Both of the bedrooms are done. The master closet is basically done. So we're down to master bath, the guest bath, and some stuff in the kitchen. So all the cabinets are in the kitchen. We're waiting on countertops still. The countertop guy came out to get the final measurements on Friday. And if we are able to get all the countertops this week, then we are on schedule to have everything wrapped up November 22nd. I am potentially 2 weeks away from this project, from this nightmare being over.
So, you okay?
Do I sound okay?
No. No. Not even remotely.
We're not being honest here.
But wait. So that's just the main house, right? Remember the other half of all of this that caused many of our delays, the septic system. So we signed a contract with a installer to do this, and we were able to successfully apply for a grant through the state of Maryland to help pay for that. So I think we talked about earlier, $30,000 to do this whole septic install, and the grant ended up paying 18 of it.
Nice.
Which is a huge freaking win.
Yeah.
That got approved, and we were able to get scheduled for the septic install. It was supposed to start Veterans Day, November 11th, tomorrow, from the day that we're recording. Today's the 10th. But unfortunately, our new tank did not arrive in time, and so that has been pushed a week. It will now be starting on the 18th. So septic is going to be installed on the 18th, 19, should take only 2 days. The rest of the project theoretically might possibly be wrapped up on the 22nd, and we have our household goods delivery scheduled for the 25th of November. It's going right up to the fucking wire.
So you're saying it could possibly actually work out?
It could possibly actually work out. We're still working on the assumption that it is not going to be done, and we have identified all the locations that we are going to put stuff. But So we have a plan. Either one way or like there's no pushing the delivery date. At this point, we're out of storage. We do not have we don't have a way to keep that out anymore. It's coming on the 25th, whether we're ready or not. So everyone keep your fingers crossed that over the next 2 weeks, Keoni and his family do not like pull their hair out from going insane over all of this that is happening. We're so close. We are so close. I have to tell an adjacent story real quick as well. Were you going to say something, John, before I do?
No, you're good.
Okay. Ashley's cousin reached out. This is an older cousin, a contemporary of her mom. So like that generation, but still cousin, right? And he said something along the lines of, hey, heard about all your renovating problems. Please let us know if there's anything that we could do, right? Because he had found our podcast, listened to it, and got the whole update on what was going on. So, Bill, if you happen to listen to this one as well, just want to say hi. Thanks for reaching out, and we really appreciate it. but oh my gosh, I was cracking up when Ashley sent me that text. I'm like, how did he even find it?
We promise this podcast is not an ongoing cry for help.
I was going to say, that's the comments that we're going to be getting. Just like, is that guy okay? We're a little bit worried.
We all are.
I'm not okay.
We know. It's all right.
Yes, I'm not okay, but we're almost there.
My concern is, as someone that worked in the service industry with the county there, you're dangerously close to becoming that guy.
I am dangerously, yes. In my defense, I was that guy because they made me that guy.
You're being nice about it. So
I was at least not irate. I was, well, there were some tears. There was definitely some getting on my knees and begging. And I am not too much like, I am man enough to know I cannot win against the Calvert County government. Like, I recognize that. And I am willing to pull on every heartstring that I can to get
I was going to say, no, cry. It will work so much better than yelling. Tears will work so much
100%.
better.
100%.
Yep.
Sorry. Since we're on a video call, I know no one can see this, but we're talking about if you're okay. And you look like you just took a giant drag. I couldn't see the bottle. I was like, well, if only they could see.
For what it's worth, it's a Diet Coke. I'm not drinking tonight. I may yet, but I'm not right now.
Those are when our best shows are.
Some of our best shows have definitely been when one or more of us were inebriated to some level.
Everybody's a little bit tipsy.
Yep.
So that's what's happening in my life. We are so close. I'm optimistic. I'm not optimistic. That's a dirty lie. I am hopeful.
There you go.
I am hopeful we are nearing the end. Oh my gosh. But at least like the crazy drama has for the most part ended. And with septic being installed and everything else, like if everything is able to be wrapped up on the 22nd, we can apply for our final inspection and then realistically have this completely done by December, but by the first week of December. So yes, I can finally start looking ahead beyond what this has been. Les, John, how have you guys been?
Sleepy?
Leslie's eye is twitching.
I'm keeping the scissors put away.
Smart.
Who let
Keep
you
that
have
up.
scissors?
Yeah, Alan, we gotta have words.
We need to talk to. Oh,
those are like those are pointy.
Damn it, Alan! Come on, man. We've talked about this.
Not really. These are the pointy ones.
Oh my!
Those
God,
crochet
she's got
hooks?
2 sets. Crochet scissors are terrifying.
Oh, those are terrifying.
Ooh.
Holy moly, those are sharp.
Yeah.
Are you flipping us off?
I was going to say, are you? Rude. Well, that answers how
These are my
Leslie's
sharp
doing.
ones. The other ones.
Leslie, please do not go looking for all the scissors. We don't have time for you to find all the sharp objects in your house.
Oh, we're not even in my house. We're just talking my desk.
Yeah,
Texting
exactly.
your husband, like, we'll keep her distracted. Here's what you need to do.
Go get the scissors.
These collapse.
Fortunately, you guys are almost snowed in, so at least you can't like get out and wreak havoc with those.
Not yet.
Where
That's the
did you
thing,
pull those out of?
Holy!
Les,
Not safe.
Les, it totally looked like you just like reached into a pocket of your jacket and pulled
It
out
did.
scissors.
It's like, is Leslie just carrying scissors around? I mean, I can kind of see it.
Oh my god, I miss you guys. That's not scissors.
Nope, it's better than scissors, although it is kind of dull.
Yeah, mine too. I need my toolbox. I might have my toolbox like
Maybe
next week
maybe we-
Friday. Oh, 2 weeks from now.
See, I
I
thought
think
that
for the most part, that's all the sharp pointy objects on my desk that aren't knitting needles.
I don't know. Maybe it's like like the winter storm watch. I thought we could do the Leslie Sharp thing warning would expire, but for Halloween, maybe we should extend that and just again make sure Leslie is not behind you. To all
Glass
of
pens
our
are sharp.
listeners.
Did you say
Yeah, I
glass
think-
pen?
Glass pen.
It is in fact a glass pen. That's actually really
So
pretty.
yes, just make sure. Just take a quick peek behind you, just in case.
Watch out for Leslie's.
It's so worth the 3 seconds it takes. Just
100% worth
just
it.
take a quick
Totally worth it.
Yep.
peek.
All
Might
right.
save your life.
So, what are we here to talk about today?
Not sharp pointy objects.
Not sharp pointy objects. Surprisingly,
That'd be a
we're
good
not
show,
here.
though.
You know, we could probably do a whole episode on sharp pointy
We
objects.
could do that.
I don't
All right,
know if people
down.
would want to listen to that though.
Because my dagger's around here somewhere too. Pretty sure it's
Alan.
behind me.
Alan is not doing his job.
We gotta have this serious talk with your husband. There was an agreement There was an agreement.
It's not allowed.
when he asked you to marry you that we made with him. He is not living up to his end of the bargain.
I'm not saying it's not reasonable to not let you have sharp things at all times, but we need to at least put a limit on it.
Limits.
Just limit the damage. This is nowhere near that.
Come on, guys. This is just my desk.
I know that's my concern.
The nice thing with Kay is, given the video, I can see if Leslie's behind you. So that's good.
I appreciate you looking out for me.
Eh,
And there's, I'm in a mostly empty room. There's really no place for her to hide.
but you checked.
I did check.
Are you challenging my skills at hide and seek? You may live to regret that.
That's the point. Is of course there's no place for her to hide. She's on the other tile.
She knows when you are sleeping.
But
Oh wait,
just
sorry.
in
That's next
case.
month. Next month. I'm a little early.
Maybe we could create an entire show to having a Thanksgiving. We could create a whole Thanksgiving monster, like Krampus. But the Thanksgiving-
On that note, I would totally unrelated, not totally unrelated. This is actually completely related. I was at there's this antique store in our town that I just absolutely adore. They have some of the absolute wildest stuff inside. But I stopped in yesterday picking up a Christmas present and just looked around to see what new things they may have. And this is what I found. It is a full-sized stuffed turkey. And I don't mean like stuffed animal. I mean like
Taxidermy.
taxidermy. They have a full-size taxidermy turkey for sale in my favorite antique shop in Chesapeake Beach for only $125, by the way.
That's not bad.
You're
not bad.
reasonable.
If they had a deer, I might have bought it for the haunt.
See, the problem is I immediately wanted to make fun of you and call you an 87-year-old woman for that, but I love antiquing.
I prefer thrifting over antiquing, but I always have to stop in at the store because they just get some of the wildest stuff. It's
Antiquing is so much fun. And I know how lame that sounds. I get it.
You know what? Haunters
care.
like looking for old, unusual things. Like
Say it's kind of par for the course here.
it's 100% par for the course. But yeah, the turkey seemed very apropos given, it's November now.
I think with that sentence, it's not like I did before, but I couldn't get into any nightclub ever just from that sentence of saying I love antiquing.
I mean, have you ever been into a nightclub?
I have one time.
Yes.
Same.
Several.
I have one time.
I've been into
Sounds
several.
When thus? How old were you?
College.
College? Yeah, same thing. I only went in college
I
once.
think I had
And it was
just turned
super awkward.
21. And it was even at 21, I was like, this is loud. It's like $12 for one beer. I can't hear anything. I think I'm good.
Yeah. The place where I got drugged to was in Providence. Yeah,
You got
Providence, Rhode Island, and went with a bunch of friends from college. It was 4 clubs in one building. Each club was like a different style of music. So there was a country one, there was a hip hop one, there was an electronic dance one. I forget what the other, probably a rock one.
Mhm.
But went with my ex-girlfriend, was in the midst of all of this, and it made it really awkward.
So she was the ex at that time.
At that time, she was an ex.
Ah,
Yeah. And this was crazy, Amanda.
Oh,
Les, you remember her?
yep.
Yeah.
Was Crackers involved?
Crackers was involved. Yes, I'm pretty sure she
Excellent.
was there as well.
Those are the best stories.
Cracker says hi, by the way. I told her.
Aw.
I had mentioned
Aw.
you guys to her.
Yay.
She's the best.
She is the best. I need to give her tools back because I need to make room in my garage because I have my shit coming now.
You stole that girl's tool?
I borrowed. She very
How long
graciously
ago
lent
did
them
you
to
borrow them?
August.
This year?
Yes, of this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, this year. She found out what I was going through and very kindly lent me tools so that I could, build
Function.
my haunt that we're actually going to talk about today. What we've accomplished in Sanguine Creek Estates, and yeah, like that's actually what we intended to talk about today. We're going to do our recap of Halloween 2024. I'm hearing a lot of rumors from the industry that this was a down year for most of the industry. And that's not uncommon for anyone who may have missed it. It was an election year, and anytime we have an election year come up, attendance at haunts tends to be down because people get very focused on election type things, right?
Elections are scary enough. We don't need existential crises. Or rather, we're already having existential crises, and we don't need, people jumping out at us already.
Exactly. So throughout the industry, it sounds like it was kind of a down year for everyone. But that gives me great hope that things will pick up next year because really, you got nowhere to go but up,
need
right?
somewhere to escape.
Well, it's on a Friday next year, I believe.
Halloween is on a Friday next year. Hold that thought.
It's so much easier.
Hold that thought, because I want to talk about future later. Let's talk about what happened this year, and then we'll talk about next year afterwards. But hang on to that thought, John, because you're headed right where I want to go.
He wants me to remember something.
So
all right, we'll give it a try.
We did not accomplish near what we hoped we would accomplish this year. We wanted to haunt the holy hell out of Sanguine Creek Estates and did not get anywhere near that. I was able to get this crypt set up, incorporated a bunch of new ghosts in the crypt. We did not create our own new ghosts, but HalloFX put out some new ones that I absolutely adored. In fact, I want to talk about them real quick since I did. They had 2 new ghosts that I bought and incorporated into our crypt. One was called, I'm going to pull it up real quick so that I can talk about it.
The way you had phrased that, I thought she had lent you some tools after graduation.
Legit.
Like, no, I think you stole those at this point.
So HalloFX had 2 new ones that I wanted to incorporate. The first was called the Caretaker, who was basically the Hatbox Ghost from Disney's Haunted Mansion. He's not actually, but he's basically the Hatbox Ghost. He carries a lantern instead of a hat box, and his head jumps into the lantern. He's wonderful. I loved him. The other one was called the Signalman. And if you picture like a 1800s train signalman, carrying the lantern and everything, you're thinking along the right lines. And both of these were super fun, super cool characters, but I freaking loved the Signalman because he was very similar to a character that we had in Sanguine Creek Estates that my wife played. And the way this character came about was my wife's a lawyer. I have mentioned that before. And so her top concern with any of my haunts is, of course, liability and people getting injured. And so her way of mitigating
Wife is a smart person.
Yes, she is. Her way of mitigating that was placing herself with a lantern in the graveyard, the place where people are going to be walking through grass instead of walking on pavement, to make sure that nobody trips, or she's there to help them immediately if they do, right? That's how she dealt with it. But she ended up being a signalman type character. She was dressed all in white wig, and was kind of an ethereal spirit guiding people through the graveyard toward the escape. And then the Wendigo came out of nowhere and feared the crap out of everyone. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it worked beautifully, but we had a signalman type character. And so to have a signalman appear in the crypt that goes so beautifully with our own signalman type character, I freaking loved it. And if anyone from HalloFX is listening, if you're willing to do a female version of the signalman, I will buy it. And some others will as well, I'm sure. I'm going to reach out to them as well to talk about this for this reason, because I bet they would be willing. But I loved both of those characters. Highly recommend HalloFX all the time. We talk about them all the time. Some other new ones they had a bunch of pirate ones, pirate on the wheel, a pirate like trying to get new recruits. They had their own version of Jump the Shark, where a shark crashes into a window. They have the caretaker playing an organ, as well as the caretaker holding the lantern. And then I talk about it all the time, how they have creepy stuff and they have hysterical fun stuff. They have a skeleton playing a guitar to Highway to Hell, as well as Frankenstein's monster singing Highway to Hell.
Nice.
They're amazing.
I'm on board.
They're amazing. So all kinds of new stuff from HalloFX. Go check them out, hallofx.com, if you want to. I adore them. So incorporated some of their new ghosts into our crypt, and I was able to set up the graveyard around the crypt and really tell the backstory of the haunt. I was super excited. I incorporated some new elements that I had not before. I was able to get a bunch of corpse skeletons from another haunter here who was liquidating some stuff. So I got some corpse skeletons that were all over the graveyard. And then I mentioned on a previous episode that I bought a casket when I was up at the Southeastern Pennsylvania Halloween flea market. So
Surprising no one.
So I put the casket out in front, and that was the collection bin for our food donations.
That's appropriate.
I thought it was freaking perfect. And I'm going to do that from now on. That is going to be the collection bin for our from now on. Like
that's perfect.
I love that. Guess how much food we brought in?
4.
Couple £100.
So for perspective, when we ran Sanguine in 2021, the last time we did like the full walkthrough haunt, we brought in 700 pounds that year.
Okay, 75.
Indeed. I'm gonna stick with 4.
Do you mean 750 or do you mean 75?
75.
75 pounds.
Yeah.
Fair. 10%. Yeah, we brought in 0. Not a single donation.
I was close. I had 4.
That's disappointing, but
it is
you guys
disappointing.
Just got back. Very little advertising time.
That's it, and you are nailing it on the head. The only advertising I did, we put some pictures up on Facebook on the Sanguine Creek page. We had a few people interact with them, asking questions about what we would be doing, and so that made me think that okay, a few people may come by and see it. And so the week before Halloween was the only time that I was really advertising, hey, we have stories, come out, see the ghost stories, leave some food for the Southern Maryland Food Bank, and do some good for the community. But I was only advertising for the 7 day, Halloween was Thursday this year. So from the previous Friday until Halloween, that was the only time that stuff was running and we were advertising for. We didn't have the signs out the way that I have in the past because all those signs with my household goods. And so there was very little directing people to where we are. And we are in, end of a very long cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is it's about a third of a mile long. Like it's a very long cul-de-sac. And we're not near a main road. If there's not something directing people down to us, they're not going to come.
Like trying to find our high school.
They didn't come. What was that, Les?
It's like trying to find our high school.
Yeah. It's absolutely. It's like trying to find our high school. It was buried deep in a residential neighborhood that with nothing around it.
Well, and a whole bunch of like back streets and weird twisty things to try and get anywhere.
Exactly. Not to mention all the speed bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the twisty zones. Oh, that's a
So
fun road.
it was disappointing, but not surprising. And I definitely did not put the effort in that I would have normally, partly because we didn't have all of our stuff. We didn't have a house. And I was putting, a ton of effort into getting the house back on track. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time and energy to spare for my haunting efforts. And as disappointing as that is to me personally, and I like to think that it's at least a little disappointing to all of you, but honestly, you probably don't care about my life that much. So I get it. Don't feel.
I do.
Thank you, John. I'm glad you do. So yeah, it was a bit of a disappointing year, but there's no but. It was a bit of a disappointing year. There are a lot of reasons for it. You know all the reasons for it, and all that we can do now is move forward and make it next year better.
There wasn't a lot you could do. Though.
There was not a lot that
Let's
we
be
could
real.
do. And that's exactly what it comes down to. Like, I don't feel
Life has to take priority.
life took a priority this year. It did.
Sometimes that happens.
And I'm optimistic that next year we'll be able to do much more. So because we didn't do a whole lot this year, that gave me a little bit of freedom to go do other stuff. And so I got to take my kids trick-or-treating, which I always appreciate doing.
Nice.
But
That's awesome.
I got to visit a home haunt elsewhere in Maryland. So Prince Frederick, which is the closest city south of us, has a huge neighborhood where my brother lives. And the houses there are super tightly packed together. It's one of those subdivisions. And so the kind that I don't want to live in, but is absolutely ideal for trick-or-treating because the houses are super closely packed together. They have a ton of kids and the whole freaking neighborhood gets into it. Like, it's insane. So we went over to his neighborhood for trick-or-treating after hitting all the houses on our cul-de-sac. And one family set up a home haunt. And I stood in line for 45 minutes with my oldest to go through it. And I have to talk about it real quick because they did some things that I absolutely loved. They also did some things that I did not love. And I was taking notes as I was standing there in the queue because that's who I am.
Of course you are.
So the way this haunt was set up, it was at the end of a cul-de-sac, and they had a big long driveway that they used for the queue line, and then the entrance to the haunt was at the end of the driveway, right? And they need to work on their line management because, oh my God. So one of the big problems that they had the line going in and the line coming out all going on the same driveway. And there was nothing to distinguish between the two. And so people were just filling in all available space on the driveway,
Sure.
leaving no space for people to get out. And they kept having to bring people, they kept having to have someone running the haunts come out and scoot everybody in the line waiting to get in over to one side so that there was a path for people to get out. So having the line right next to the entrance can work, but you have to be able to clearly delineate what those paths of travel are. And so I think they could have solved it pretty easily just by, stringing a rope down the middle of the driveway and a couple of signs: enter that way, exit that way, stay out of the exit, stay in the enter. I think they could mitigate that very easily.
Could also have they could have had a Harley just going back and forth with the hammer. And
they could have had a Harley going back and forth and occasionally whacking people with a hammer. Option. Like that, an enforcer.
That's a viable option.
And actually, that's
what's not Batman theme.
That is definitely one of the things I was thinking about. Like, they had a massive queue for a home haunt. Literally, I was standing in it for 45 minutes. And
I was gonna say, it's pretty good.
With that kind of a queue, I feel like you need some level of entertainment to keep people not necessarily engaged, but entertained while they're waiting. So
you don't want people to leave.
you don't want people to leave. You want people to come in and go through it, but you also want them to not be playing with your props and bumping into things. And
Okay, were you playing with props?
maybe. But like if they have something to pay attention to while all of that is going on, then they are less inclined to fiddle with things. So having an actor, a queue line actor out there interacting with people, startling people, messing with people is a good way. Doing something like I use by singing pumpkins in the queue line to give kids and even adults something to watch while they're standing in line. It's entertaining, right? Or Spectral Illusions has such a freaking great haunt rules video where a character like picture the Crypt Keeper pops up, yells at people, telling them the rules, and then disappears for a bit, and the rules just pop up on the screen. Like
Sure,
something to watch.
that's really AI.
Well, it's really AI, but something to watch while standing there waiting in the queue line.
So 45-minute queue line. How long was the haunt itself? Like, how long did it take to get through?
It was maybe 5 to 7 minutes walking through.
Okay.
And that might be a little bit long. Maybe it was close. I think it was closer to 5.
Okay.
But like for a haunt, it was pretty solid. I would say it was maybe half the size of Sanguine's walkthrough, the last one that we did. But that one was what, 1,900 square feet, 2,200 square feet, something like that.
Interesting.
But it was a reasonable size. The other thing, if you had to take a wild guess on what their final scare is, what would you suspect they might use?
Was there an overall theme or just general scariness?
There was not, and I'll talk about that. But no, there was not an overall theme. It was a little bit
said
haphazard.
Disapprovingly.
It was a little bit haphazard, honestly.
All right.
But what do you
zombie jump scare?
No. And I mean, no, it was not. Les, any guesses? Most popular final scare.
I mean, I
really
have one,
across
but
the board.
I don't want to say it.
I mean, my first thought would be zombie, but
John,
most popular?
Most popular.
I don't want to say it.
I see it all the time.
Oh, never mind. Here, I'll text it. But a bee.
Oh, chainsaw.
Chainsaw. It was
Okay,
chainsaw. And having a guy with a chainsaw chasing people out when your exit is right next to your entrance kind of ruins the effect. You know it's coming. Like it ruined the effect a little bit. That's not to say my son did not let go of my hands, go taking off running the moment that he saw freedom, and then the chainsaw guy come up right behind him and chase him all the way out. It still happened. It still happened. But I'm just saying, if you're
that was going to be my response.
Everybody knew it was coming because it was right there.
I mean, I would run. That would be
That's my point. Yeah, so their line management definitely needs some work. And really they had some rules posted. They had no way of enforcing it. And that showed up in a couple of places. The other thing, their construction techniques need a little bit of help because it was flimsy. And the number of people they had coming in or walking through and kind of messing with stuff was there was a lot of it, and it made the flimsiness notable. There were no problems with stuff getting knocked over or anything that I saw, but there were they had pillars right there at the entrance that were definitely falling apart by the time we got to it. So that's my immediate feedback. On the negative side, I do want to.
What about you mentioned the theme when I talked about it.
There was no theme.
I was gonna say to see. I wish you could see his face.
It was a little bit disappointing in that way. Here's the picture I was looking for.
Halloween scary classic.
It was classic Halloween scary. It was not. Okay. I would say there was no discernible story. I really enjoyed their branding though. So the street that we were on is called Kinsall. Kinsale or Kinsale, Kinsail, right? Kinsale Court or Kinsale
Feeling where
Place.
this is going.
They made a sign like an arch over their doorway that said Kinsale Place in big black letters. And then they took red spray paint and sprayed LL over the N and LL over IL. So it ended up saying Kills All Place. And I love it. I love everything about that. It's perfect.
It reminds me
notes.
of Arkham when we had put up
Laughter is the best
stencils.
medicine.
Yeah, with laughter was the best medicine. And, like,
and then spray painted an S in front of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the branding, no notes. Perfect. Chef's kiss. Impeccable. Absolutely love that. That was amazing. And right there at the entrance, they used a pop-up tent, very similar to the pop-up tents that I use. But then it was open after that, which I did not expect. It started off making me think I was going inside, but immediately transitioned into much more of a almost haunted forest walk through kind of thing. And I enjoyed the juxtaposition. I have to give shout out to the first actor, not the one who was controlling the line, although he also deserves a shout out because absolutely nailed it. He had us going in at the perfect pace so that people, like, I never ran into another group. We did not have group run into us. We got our own experience in the haunt, and I appreciated it.
Nice.
That's nice.
My son is a giant chicken, and he was clinging to my arm the entire time. There were times I had to like steer him around, but right at the very beginning, after leaving the enclosed tent part and we're out onto the trail, there was a dummy standing just off to one side as we're walking by. And to make my son feel better, as we got up to the dummy, I like jumped at the dummy and growled at it, right? It wasn't a dummy. But this actor absolutely fucking nailed it. He took it without even a flinch, perfectly still, and as soon as we walked by, came around behind us, got up behind us, and scared forward. Absolutely nailed it, sir.
How did you take that?
Oh, I saw him move, so I knew it was coming.
Okay.
My son did not, and he flipped. It was amazing. Oh my gosh, I loved every moment of that. That actor, oh my gosh, I want to give you so much props because you just absolutely made my night. Absolutely loved it.
It's almost like they had having a food critic in your restaurant, but you don't know it. Like they didn't know they have like a home haunting celebrity in their mix.
They had no idea. They had no idea. So, we went through a bunch of different scenes. They had like a doll room set up. They had probably 5 or 6 actors. Like it was fairly well staffed, popping out left and right. But like I said, there was not a consistent theme that I could find throughout. Just kind of spooky scenes littered throughout this trail. And my son wet himself. He didn't actually wet himself. He may as well have wet himself for all that he was handling. Like he did not handle it well. And we get to the end of it, and the end, you can see the exit corridor, right? So he lets go of my hand and just starts running. That was the wrong move because the chainsaw man pops out, and because he's already running, he just goes running after him. It was good that my wife and son were out there. My wife and younger son, who did not want to go in, were out there because she intercepted him. Otherwise, God knows where he would have run to.
Yeah, good call. All right.
Oh, but something else I loved that they did or their neighbor did, not totally clear. Somebody set up one of those inflatable screens, and they were playing Nightmare Before Christmas on this inflatable screens for people who did not want to go into the haunt. My son got to sit there on the grass watching Nightmare Before Christmas under the stars.
That was nice.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And I'd love to bring something like that into ours potentially as well.
So
go ahead.
You are not taking it easy on your son there.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. He was talking a big game. Like going in, he saw the sign for it. He's like, Dad, I want to go. We should absolutely do that. I'm like, absolutely, we're gonna do that. And then as we got closer and closer to the entrance, he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to go. Dad, I don't want to go. And I'm like, well, it's too late now. You're in line. You can't get out of the line. The only way out is through the haunted house. He's like, I don't want to. I do not feel bad.
No, I can sense that. I can tell.
Although he has not forgiven me yet. To this point, he has not yet forgiven me for dragging him through.
The question will be, will he go through another haunted house ever again?
This is just all good fodder for future therapy.
You're supposed to try not to mess them up. I know you will, but I know you're supposed to try. He's put in some effort.
I am making him a stronger adult.
I think I have the
or I'm completely
problem.
breaking him. Honestly, I'm not sure which.
Based on the number of head injuries mine's inflicted, I think I have the opposite problem that you do.
Right. But this is parenting, isn't it? We don't know how we're going to damage our children. The best we can do is make them functional humans in spite of it.
It's going to happen some way, one way or another. But
exactly. Speaking of which, I hear a lot of crashing and banging happening in their room, and I need to go yell at them for a moment. So let's take a quick break here from our sponsors, and then we can talk about where we want to go from here.
Enjoy.
Alrighty, and thank you for our sponsors. Without you, the show would be, well, much more broke.
It's like not as well funded.
Not that we're particularly well funded anyway, but at least it's mostly paying for itself.
It's paying for itself, and we get
not paying for us.
Luckily, we're cheap. But we get first-hand information on all of the new things that come up and all of the new products that they come out with, which are truly amazing and delightful and perfect for everything that we do.
And if any of you have word that you want to get out to a group of dedicated Halloween enthusiasts, please reach out to us because we would love to show you all the ways the Hunting You podcast can get your message out to our listeners. And
we know people.
We do know people and help us keep the show going as well, which is greatly appreciated.
I didn't want to bring it up on air. I did have that issue where I haven't received a paycheck in like 6 years.
Ever. Have we been doing this for 6 years? I think we have.
I don't know. I made the number up, but
I think that's about right. It may be 7.
Somewhere in there.
No, I think it's closer to 7.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
It's even more egregious.
Indeed.
Well, because we started it when you went to...
We started it
after Masters.
Yeah, and I think we started it in 17. So I think it's been 7 years, summer of 17.
Yeah.
I can't be sure of that because we switched over from Stitcher to Podbean in the midst of that. Yeah. And so I don't know when we uploaded our initial episodes. But I think it was summer of 17. So yeah, it's been 7 years. Can you guys believe we've been doing this for 7 years?
We had Leslie on as a guest at one point.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. I think that only lasted
what a recurring guest you've been.
Yeah. Maybe one day you'll actually get rid of us.
Well, so much so that very nice woman who did our profile for that magazine will have only listened to the first 3 or 4 episodes where Leslie wasn't on.
I went back and listened to an episode right shortly after that, and our discussion about how we got slighted was wonderful. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice trip down memory lane.
It was a great article. You just may have
just didn't talk about Leslie.
It was that small detail of missing one of the hosts.
Exactly.
I get it if she only listens to the first 3 or 4. I mean, I guess
then that's accurate. At that point, Leslie was not a
she was,
host.
I'm forgetting her name at this point, but she was very nice and offered to rewrite or to do she did a rewrite, didn't she?
She didn't do a rewrite. No, she didn't do a rewrite. She gave us a full 3-page spread.
That's what it was. Yes.
The next year. Yeah.
So we went from a 1-page under the radar podcast to a full 3-page featured podcast, which was kind of cool.
That was fun. So guilt and shaming works.
Podcast magazine. Podcast magazine. Go check it out. You'll see us several years ago.
I was gonna say it's 3 or 4 years ago.
That was a lot of years ago.
The first episode on iTunes shows as July 1st, 2017.
Okay, that actually is when I think we were starting.
So yeah, 7 years.
7 years.
So if you could
And
talk to
coming
HR
up-
about that whole payroll thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're our HR dude.
Oh,
Better you than me.
That's our
Oh.
problem. Leslie's finance. I'm operations. That means you're HR. But anyway, back to the show.
okay. Why do you want to work for this company?
Because I love Halloween and I love sharing that
I lost your
passion
application.
with.
I have some questions for you.
See what happens when we put John in charge of HR?
Yeah, that was a mistake. And you want the truth? I remember about 40 minutes ago, you asked me to remember something, but I have no idea what the hell it was.
Well, it was what day Halloween is in 2025, because Halloween 25 is really what I want to talk about for the rest of the podcast.
I also remembered something. The question: what grade would you give? What grade would you have given the haunt?
Our haunt?
The one you went to.
The home haunt that we went to.
Yeah,
I would give it a solid B+.
Okay.
Like it was a good experience. The actors had lots of flexibility in what they did. They provided a good scare, and while the construction certainly could use some work, the overall experience was a lot of fun, and it was more fun than I've had in even some professional haunts.
Okay. I was going to say, I feel like you rated the professional haunts lower. So.
I was going to say, it was a higher quality than any of the haunts that I went to at Universal.
That is both wonderful for them and an indictment on Universal.
Yes, it was meant to be an indictment on Universal. Take notes, Universal.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
So, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, because haunt season is over and we are branching out, we being my family, branching out and experiencing some things. So there is a traveling show going around that came to our area relatively. It was 2 hours away, but worth it. Totally worth it. Called Harry Potter: A Forbidden Forest Experience. It's in Leesburg, Virginia right now, and through for a few weeks. And I think there's another one in Austin, Texas. There's one in Montauban, France. And these things, it travels around. It's put on by Warner Brothers, and you literally end up walking through a forest. At least here, we were walking through a forest and coming to all of these scenes from the books and movies where the Forbidden Forest acts as a location, or acts as a character to the story that is happening, right? So they had a number of different scenes set up, like from the first movie where Harry and Draco encounter Voldemort drinking unicorn blood in the Forbidden Forest during their detention. They had one with just Hagrid exploring the forest. We go into Aragog, the spider's den, and are surrounded by all of his children. And just all of these different scenes from the books and movies that take place in or around the Forbidden Forest. And the entire experience was so much freaking fun. Now, one, I'm a giant Potterhead. My children are giant Potterheads. My wife is a giant Potterhead. We love the Harry Potter franchise, the movies, the books. And my children have gotten very into it since the summer, when we listened to all of the books as we were making our way across the country, listen to the audiobooks, right? And so they were well primed. And I think even for people who are not giant Potterheads, you would still enjoy this experience. It cost about $100 for the four of us, maybe a little bit more with parking, but it was worth every freaking penny. So after they scanned our tickets, we walk into a courtyard where they have themed food offerings. They had, because it's getting into winter and kind of cold, they had all kinds of hot chocolates, themed hot chocolates based on the four houses. The Slytherin one was like a mint. There was a caramel for Hufflepuff. There was a vanilla for Ravenclaw. I forget what the Gryffindor was.
Cinnamon. It'll be cinnamon.
I think you're right. I think it was cinnamon. And then
If they're basing this off of colors, then clearly Gryffindor has to be Mexican hot chocolate.
Clearly. But they also had a mulled wine that Ashley tried and really enjoyed. And of course, they had butterbeer. They only had cold butterbeer, which I was a little bit disappointed about because hot butterbeer would have been perfect last night because it was chilly. But it was still great. And there in the courtyard, they had a roasting marshmallows station where we could pay. They would give us 3-foot long sticks with 3 marshmallows on the end. And then they just had basically a fire pit set up with little propane burners to roast the marshmallows over. It was freaking genius. Like, my kids loved it. They even gave us little containers of themed sprinkles based on houses. So you could, put colored sprinkles on your marshmallows. And like, it was so freaking entertaining. They loved it. And it was such a great idea. I thought that was great. So all kinds of food and drink offerings, all themed. But then you actually walk into the forest and it was beautifully lit. Lots of floodlights shining up into trees. And every single tree along this walkthrough was illuminated in different ways. They had moving headlights, they had color changing lights, and all of it was synchronized to a soundtrack that was playing through the different areas to animate and illuminate the scene that they were setting. So like the first scene that we come to is Harry and Draco and Fang in the Forbidden Forest when they come across Voldemort drinking the unicorn's blood, right? And
I would just like to point out,
go ahead.
Total sidebar. Nobody's allowed in the forest. But if you get detention,
you're going in the forest.
Okay. Anywho, carry on.
Yeah, I have always enjoyed that. It's okay, Les. Don't
damn mouse.
Exactly. But yeah, so all the trees are illuminated, and there is audio from the movies playing over the soundtrack as it's animating the scenes. Some of the scenes had actual animatronics. Some of the scenes were just dummies, static scenes, but each one was very detailed, very well done, and drawing from all different parts of the stories. And they had, like, I cannot emphasize enough the level of care that they put into developing these scenes and the detail that they put into it. And the fact that this is, a mobile show that is being set up in a different location, I was in awe of the level of care that went into it, considering the fact that it is a mobile show. It was very impressive. They had a couple of spots that were very cool where it looks like they actually set up screens. So like we could actually see a glowing unicorn walking through the trees back and forth. And it was very cool.
Sounds like it's very, very thought out and well done.
It was incredibly thought out. But what got me, aside from, so I'm just going to scroll through the scenes real quick. We talked about the unicorn. They had the Ford Angela, the flying car that Ron and Harry steal to get to the school that it becomes wild and running through the forest. They had lights set up so that it was like the headlights of the car racing or flying through the trees, which is super cool. And then an actual like static version of the car that you could take pictures with. They had, I mentioned Aragog's forest and Aragog's burrow where all the spiders were. And the way they set it up is they actually put a scaffolding in the middle of the forest and then put camo netting on the inside with spider webs to create a tunnel, a more enclosed space that you have to walk through and illuminated from the outside. So you're getting just weird shadows and colors shining through the netting. It was a very cool effect that I'm 100% doing here next year. I thought it was cool. As I'm walking through it, I say to my son, my chicken son, we have to do this at our house. This is so freaking cool. And he agreed. Even he agreed. But then like we walk through and get into the actual spider's den, and dangling from all of the trees around us are spiders the size of my dog. like enormous freaking spiders. And then you come up to a like mound of sticks and things. And this was the first time that we saw an actual moving animatronic. So everything had been static up to that point, set an expectation that everything would be static until we get to the giant freaking spider, which starts coming out and talking to us. And it was freaking freaky.
Awesome.
It was awesome. It was really, and this spider was not joking, the size of my car, like enormous freaking animatronic out there in the middle of the woods. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Then we visited Hagrid's hut. They had a bunch of the magical creatures from when Hagrid was a teacher. So we had blast-ended scroots. We had hippogriffs. There was actually an animatronic hippogriff where you could go up, and if you bow to it properly, then it would bow back to you. Like it interactively. Like this hippogriff was interactive. And then they even brought in a bunch of creatures from that we don't see in the movies at all. They get talked about in the books, but we don't really see in the movies until the Fantastic Beasts saga. So they had nifflers, they had bowtruckles, they had an absolutely freaking beautiful snowy owl perched up on a branch, beautifully illuminated. She was fantastic that you could take pictures with. Pygmy puffs and freshly released Cornish pixies. In fact, the cages from the movie were there, all snapped open, and the Cornish pixies just going crazy out in the middle of the woods. But then we get to a sign that says guests should take particular care on the trail during full moon cycles. And we see off in the distance a full moon coming out from behind the clouds, and we hear werewolves howling. And oh my gosh, the way that they set this scene up was spectacular. Looking back through my pictures, I think they have a, like, for lack of a better word, a cardboard cutout. I'm sure it's probably plywood or something else, but it's basically a 2D cutout in the shape of the werewolf that Lupin becomes. And they illuminated it from behind, giving you just the shadow of the werewolf.
That's awesome.
With all of the audio from that scene in the movie. Lupin, did you take your medicine? And the howling, and like, it was spot on. Gave me chills watching it. It was absolutely spectacular. And the image of this monstrous creature illuminated from behind, just in a shadow, was so freaking cool that, Leslie, we have to do this with a Wendigo. It looks amazing. And I don't know if they had a fog machine or if it was just a little bit foggy that night, but you had a bright light behind it with the fog, and it, along with the sound effects. We have the technology in my garage right now, or at least 2 weeks from now when I get my household goods. We could do this. I think we need to do this. Then we got to a Dementor scene where they actually had Dementors strung up into the trees over us, flying around. And they used the audio from the third movie when Harry and Sirius are being attacked by the Dementors, and Harry has gone back in time and casts his first Patronus to chase them off, and he thinks this is his father. That is the scene that we're walking through here. And same thing, they used a white cutout of a stag and illuminated it just absolutely blindingly brilliantly as it came up. And they had multiple lights running with it, so that, he goes, "Expecto Patronum," and it starts with light from behind. So that you just start to see the shape of the stag. And then they hit it with a light from the front, so it's this brilliant blue-white color off in the trees. And it was spectacular. It looked amazing. And it's done with a freaking static 2D sign and lights. Like, it was amazingly done and so simple. Any haunter could pull it off.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. You don't have to be complicated. You don't have to be even like technologically advanced to pull off something absolutely spectacular. And this was a beautiful example of that. I thought it was wonderful. Go check out our Instagram at Hunting University. I am putting all of the pictures I took up on there. You'll be able to see for yourself just what it looks like. Absolutely loved it. So some other scenes after the Dementors. Oh my gosh. So right in the middle, they had a kind of a break in the storytelling that they were doing, where they had a few stations set up where people could practice their spells. And it was interactive. So the first one was a Lumos spell, where, and like the way they had these set up, they had basically a sign with the spell on it, so you knew what to say, and then you put your arm out and cast a spell over the sign, and there's a sensor on the other side of the sign that sees you, that triggers some kind of effect on the other side.
Light show.
Do the Lumos, and a brilliant white light shines up out of the trees on the opposite side. Or you do, they had another one with Nox, which puts out light, and a whole field of illuminated mushrooms that got put out when you did Nox. Or Colovaria, where you could actually change the colors of all of these mushrooms that are there and arrayed in the field in front of you. Oh, and Incendio. They had a whole bunch of lanterns set up where you do Incendio, and it lights all of the lanterns in order. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. And it was interactive. It was entertaining. It gave the kids something to really look forward to doing. It was super cool. But so after that, we get into like the Goblet of Fire and the Triwizard Tournament. There's a whole section of the trail that have all of the banners from Beaubaton Academy and Durmstrang and Hogwarts, and the songs from like the school songs are playing as you're walking through each one with very dedicated speakers. So like there was very little overlap between the sections. I was impressed. It was very well done. But then we get into like the Triwizard Tournament. So they have a Goblet of Fire right there with the line that Dumbledore drew, the age line to keep people out, all done with lights. They had the egg that with the Mer People clue, they're playing the song. They had a whole section of the dragons in crates, and like one ginormous crate with a hole in it, the dragon's face on the other side with a moving eye looking around, and then a tail sticking out of another hole in the crate. Every so often, you would get a big flash of red light as it's breathing fire. It was awesome. We ran into Grop, Hagrid's brother, out there in the middle of the forest.
Impressive.
It was very impressive. And then got into the dark part of the forest, where really book 6 and book 7, the darkness really starts to come in, and ran into Death Eaters, and we never saw Voldemort himself, but that whole section was super creepy. It was very cool. But the highlight was the end of the trail, where people could cast their own Patronus. They had 2 stations set up where you would walk up on, climb up a short thing of stairs onto a platform, Expecto Patronum, right? And then they had a massive see-through screen, Hallusion screen, set up there on the other side with a projector that as people would do it, I think they had a worker there triggering a video and then you would have a bunch of different Patronus animals get projected up on the screen and bounce around on the screen a few times before disappearing.
Nice.
One, I have the technology to do that.
Oh no.
2, it was super interactive. It was super easy to do. Like, we can do something like that. It has to be in line with our story, but we can do something like that.
So there's a couple of things that I really like about just kind of what you're telling me. One of which is there's a lot of things that home haunters can take away from it.
Absolutely.
As evident by, us being super excited. 2, keep it simple, stupid. Now, yeah, they have budget, they have all of these things, but the practical applications of the basic effects are relatively straightforward.
Yes.
And 3, as someone who has gone to so many events and things as a child, only to find all of the interactive pieces broken, I love the fact that there is not something that you can actively or easily break on all of the interactive activities. So you're not having something set up and then having, the one asshole go through and break everything. So that's really nice.
You're not actually touching anything. Which it's super interactive, but you're not actually touching it. So the chances of your guest breaking it are slim to none. Oh my gosh. There was a duel station set up where
Nice.
Luca, my oldest, and I got to duel each other. And
Who won?
I won.
They give you special wands, and you touch the wand to an LED bar that's set up in a zigzaggy pattern. So as you touch it, it illuminates a different color for each of you. And then the color fights its way back and forth a few times before disappearing. It was super freaking cool. I loved it. But same thing. They gave us special wands that interacted with this thing. I'm not totally convinced you needed it. It may have been a magnet switch or something to trigger it or something like that. But yeah, it was so freaking fun. I want to incorporate so many things that we saw there into our haunt next year somehow. I don't know how yet, but we're going to dedicate an episode to figuring it out because I so want to make our haunt more interactive. I am so inspired by this to make our haunt more interactive.
And again, it can't necessarily be easily broken by an asshole. Is crucial.
Yes. And I want to what has been kind of a big takeaway for me for this Halloween was having something for people who don't want to go through the haunt, who are too afraid to go through the haunt, who have family who wants to go, but they don't want to go, whatever. I want to have something for them. And one, I think we can do that with the Terror Tap ghost system that I picked up at Fear Expo and is with my household goods, and we were not able to use this year. Super annoyed by that. So I think that's one way we can make make the estate more interactive.
Right.
But I think there are other things that we can do as well. And incorporating, simple controllers from either Fright Props or Purgatory Props, along with media players that are triggerable. I think we can do some really cool things for not a lot of money. Yeah. And so I want to do some brainstorming over the next few episodes and come up with ideas for that and ways that we can make our haunt more interactive because, oh my God, I'm inspired right now.
Well, and it is great. It is nice to have those other options for, again, people who don't necessarily like going through haunts, or, hey, I don't need the nightmares tonight, so I'm going to pass on this one. Or, yeah, I'm 5 years old and this is a terrible life choice that my parents took me here.
Yep.
Agreed.
Those types of things.
My kids and I have talked about doing a lemonade stand kind of thing during our haunt, and maybe not lemonade necessarily, but maybe hot apple cider, hot cocoa, something like that. Sure. That I think my kids would be perfectly willing to stand out there and serve, and perhaps make a little bit of money off of.
Yeah.
$60 a pop.
my son,
especially with that, all you need is the packets and then hot water.
Exactly.
Right.
Did I tell you guys about the last time my son ran a lemonade stand? It was while we were doing a garage sale, getting ready to move, right? So, clearing stuff out. And they're like, hey, we'll set up a lemonade stand and they can get a little money. Well, my son ended up making a fair amount of money because he didn't fully understand what change was. And so people would give him a $5. He'd be like, thank you for the tip and keep it. And people would not question him because they felt bad. And they're like, well, I guess you're getting a tip now.
That's an excellent business plan.
Brilliant. That is brilliant.
So, what you're saying is make a child your front man.
Make a child your front man because no one will question him.
That's genius.
But especially to turn that into a thank you for the tip.
Exactly. Like no one.
I'm
Adorable
acknowledging.
smile.
I'm acknowledging that what you gave me is more than what you owed, but I'm assuming that you're just giving me a tip.
You're just looking straight at them with an
nobody
adorable
questioned it.
face. Like, I
Nobody
dare you to
questioned
call
it.
me honest.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, so as John mentioned earlier, Halloween this year is a Friday. And what I have consistently found is people do not come to my house on Halloween. That is well documented over the last several years that we have been here and set something up, right? So I'm a little bit stuck because I don't know, are we better off opening the haunt the weekend before or the weekend after?
I think before the interest may go down after.
I think,
Or do you think
depending on capability, why not both?
Why
both
not
would be ideal?
Because here's the let's call it logic. You know, before you get all the pre-work, all the run up, etc. But after, especially as you're going to, pushing in towards we're collecting food. Hey, it's November now, donate of Thanksgiving. But also just as a, hey, wind down, final hurrah. You guys have already gotten your candy. Why don't you come in and, extend the Halloween spirit, especially since it's a Friday, Saturday.
Especially because it's a Friday. That's it. Like, my thought is
What's
we do
the
trick or
downside?
treating. We do trick or treating on Halloween, and then Saturday, Sunday after Halloween, we're open, collecting food and letting people.
Yeah, why not?
Haunt. I think it could work.
I
think there would be
see
enough
very
interest.
little downside.
That's it. I mean, what's the downside?
Yeah, really
People
isn't.
don't come. Well, we had no people come this year. Like, we got nowhere to go but up.
I think it's because I'll be honest. When you said, "Well, nobody comes to my house on Halloween," it got me thinking you were gonna, say something about. Well, then you get into, as we discussed from that book, a giant weenie costume and drag people off the street. It's like, as the HR for the podcast, I don't think that's a good idea.
I appreciate that. 100% appreciate that. I have some ideas on, ways that we can, well, I mean, obviously, if we do any more advertising, we will likely get more people to come. And I have some ideas on things that we can do to increase that advertising, increase our reach next year. But if we're, starting from now, we have the time to do that, which we did not have this year. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to accomplish for next year. And like, I kind of think it's an elegant, you may be right, John. Maybe we do both the weekend before and the weekend after.
Well, I think that was Leslie's idea, but
yeah, you're right. It was Les. I apologize. But
I think, remember, you just made an HR person who agrees with theft. Theft is now corporate policy. It's a rational idea. It was probably Leslie.
Well, here we are. So
You're like, I'm good with it.
This is where I want to go for this year. So go ahead, Les.
Finance is going to override it because I don't want to have to fill out the paperwork.
Nice. So this is where I want to go for this year. We've got, it's November 10th. We have 355 days until next Halloween. 354. And so we've got plenty of time to plan this. I think we can execute. So that's where we're headed. And over the next, several episodes, that's really what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about the planning process for Sanguine Creek Estates 2025. And I hope all of you come along on that journey with us. John, why don't you give a roundup of our social media?
You can find us all of the places. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/hauntingyou. Instagram, Haunting University. We're all there. We post a lot of content there. YouTube is just Haunting You. Correct?
Yes, it is.
If I remember correctly.
That is
we have our good YouTube channel. You can find the podcast anywhere where podcasts are said. You can do Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Audible, Spotify. You can find us anywhere on there. If you want to help the podcast, just boost us a little bit. Give us a review. If good, bad, tell us what you like, what you didn't like. Tell us what the hell that mouse was doing in the story. Somebody tell us. Leave some good feedback.
But the best thing you can do to support the podcast, if you don't want to give us money, we will take it if you want to give us money. But if you don't want to give us money, leave a review. Give us 5 stars, ideally, but any amount of stars, honestly, will makes it easier for others to find us. So go whatever podcast app you're listening on, leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. And we'll take the time to read it and laugh and smile. And we really enjoy hearing your feedback as well.
We may give you a shout out.
We may give you a shout out, especially if it makes us laugh.
Yep.
All right. What did we forget? Anything?
Oh, the other thought I had with doing it after into technically November is we could tweak a couple of things just in terms of, I don't know. We could tweak some things to make it, more November-y instead of October-y.
Zombie turkey.
There will be no zombie turkeys. There might be zombie turkeys.
You already know where to find one.
There might be zombie turkeys.
It's right there.
And it's relatively reasonably priced.
Not to steal from Universal, but having a human on the table with the turkey family, eating him, still my favorite haunted Thanksgiving soup. Love it. It's one of the few things that I loved about Halloween Horror Nights. Anyway,
we're just making the holiday transition from Halloween into Thanksgiving, and once hell freeze is over, we'll do another one into the holidays.
we could do this as a theme, but one I would really like to do is Zombie Arbor Day.
Zombie Arbor Day.
Yes,
I'm thinking.
Is it going to be zombie trees?
Ants. Yes, zombie ants.
I approve this plan.
Yes. Maybe when I would tempt for trademark and copyright reasons, we probably cannot call them ents.
Accurate, but we can find a way around that. We always do. All right. I think that is a good place to leave it for today. Definitely come check us out at all of the socials John mentioned. Subscribe to the podcast so you can be notified every time that we release a new one. And in the meantime, we will see you all back in December. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, or if you're, not in the country, hope you have a wonderful November anyway.
Zombie Boxing Day.
Zombie Boxing Day. From all of us here at Haunting You, happy haunting, happy Thanksgiving. We will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
We are incredibly grateful to all the sponsors who make this show possible, especially our premium sponsors, the Chamber of Haunters, Fear Expo, and VFX. You can learn more about our premium sponsors by checking out their websites, chamberofhaunters.com, fearexpolive.com, and vfxcreates.com. Check out our website, Haunting You, for more information on everything that we do. Haunting You is a production of the Rocky Mountain Home Haunters, LLC. All audio clips and sound effects are used under a Creative Commons Attribution or Public Domain license from Purple Planet Music at purple-planet.com or the Sound Bible at soundbible.com. Please see the show notes for more information on all the clips used in this episode.
Yay!